r/AskReddit by Reddit. Women of Reddit, what is your trying to buy a car/item, but the seller is sexist story? Was once in a car crash and spent the next day sorting out panel beating, etc. Went to get the front axle realigned. The guy was incredibly condescending and questioned me for a couple of minutes with questions such as, "Now why do you think it's out of alignment, sweetie?" Got really fed up and just asked him to follow me out to the car, where he went quiet and admitted it was bent. He would only been a couple years older than me. I'm 22. I got the same thing. Took my car in for oil change and alignment. "Oh honey, you probably don't need an alignment." When I went to pick up the car he was like, "Yeah, it needed an alignment." I put on my best surprised face and was like, "Oh really? Are you sure?" I had no idea. I was trying to rent an apartment a few years ago. The landlord, who was a middle-aged lady, kept talking about how I needed to find a husband to take care of the paperwork for me. In fact, a whole lot of our conversation was about how I needed to find a husband. She also made passive-aggressive jabs about how I wasn't getting any younger. And she kept saying that I should have a man around to deal with basic things like changing light bulbs and taking out the trash. I wish I could say I didn't rent from her, but the unit was really nice and cheap for its size. Ironically, every time I needed help with something, she said to deal with her, not her husband, because he was lazy and incompetent. I went to a dealership to purchase a car after mine was totaled in an accident. My father-in-law drove me because my husband was at work. This guy kept ignoring me and talking to my father-in-law. Even after every question was answered. "I don't know what kind she wants. Ask her. And I have no idea what her budget is." I walked off and he was still talking to my father-in-law, showing him a car. I walked up to another salesman and told him that guy apparently didn't want to sell women cars and asked if he did. He was glad to help me and kept smirking at sexist guy while filling out the paperwork. I think there was some rivalry there because my sales guy was very accommodating and even threw in 4 brand new tires. It has a car in the story, so I'll tell it anyhow. I was at a bar at closing time, walked out to leave, and my car would not start. My dad taught me how to do my own maintenance on the car, so after turning the key I could hear that it was the starter and there really wasn't anything I could do at 2 AM but get a ride home and come back later. I should clarify that this was before Uber. So I go back into the bar and ask the bartender if I can hang out for a bit. My car is broke down and I need to arrange a ride. Cue 3 fellows, one of whom had been chatting me up, jumping up and demanding to go look at my car so they could fix it. "Thanks guys, it's the starter, nothing to do until I can replace it." Nope, they had to go out and try. The funny thing was, once I relented and brought them out, it was clear only one of them had worked on cars. He got under the hood while the other 2 shuffled around and threw out suggestions like, "Maybe it needs an oil change, buddy." Unfortunately for my poor car, the guy who was under the hood was the one flirting with me, so he really did not want to give up. And it took me a really long time to get a ride, so I just sat there listening to him hammer away at random bits under my hood. He did smack the starter a few times when he climbed under the car. Edit, I know smacking the starter does work sometimes. But he had been drinking this entire time, and again, it was 2 AM, so I can't be certain if he managed to smack the starter at all, but he was banging on many things. And being a young girl by myself with strangers at 2 AM who followed me to my car, I was staying away so as to not put myself in a compromising position. I had declined their assistance because I didn't know them, and they followed me anyways, asserting that they could get the car running. Needless to say, the car didn't start. I sat there awkwardly waiting for my ride. The dude finally gave up and said I should replace my starter. My so used to work at an Apple store. Anytime a customer had a woman helping them and then asked if they could speak to someone else or a manager or someone who knew their stuff, they'd bring over another woman. They'd have 5 women of various rank that they'd just send over in rotation until the customer would get flustered and stop asking, "You want someone else? Mariah, can you come here? Oh, someone who knows their stuff? Of course, I'll call Jennifer. Oh, a manager? Stephanie, can you help John here? Oh, a genius member? Betty should be able to help you in a minute. I would pay to see this in action. As a female gamer who majored in Comp C and sold electronics at Toys R Us during college, I don't think a day went by where I wasn't talked down to about technology by someone. But the absolute strangest one wasn't as a buyer, but came from an older lady who was looking to buy Studio Ghibli movies. I'm also a huge anime fan, so I was excited to recommend my favorites and ones she and her grandkids might like, but she just refused to talk to me and kept asking if there was another employee who knew about this kind of stuff. She eventually caught eye of my long-haired male coworker and was like, he looks like he would know, and went off to ask him. He knew nothing about anime, but when he finally figured out what she was talking about, I saw his face light up. Oh, you should ask EmKay over there, she knows all about that stuff. And she stomped off without another word. A similar story happened to my wife maybe 10 years ago. She worked in electronics at a big retailer and approached a lady to offer help with a printer. The lady straight up asked, "Is there a man who could help me?" At that time there were only women in the department and my wife told her so, but this lady insisted. My wife called for a man over the radio and got a guy from a different department and walked away. So this lady starts asking him questions, and of course he can't answer them, so he relays them to my wife over the radio, who answers them from 2 aisles down, right in front of this lady, who by all accounts, didn't have the decency to look embarrassed. A couple of years ago I went into my local gaming store to buy an Xbox One. I had my husband with me as I didn't want to be walking around town on my own with a games console as that's asking to be mugged. Despite me asking for the console and paying for it, the guy serving me absolutely refused to speak to me, talking over my head to my husband, who was behind me. He wouldn't even look at me and even used the prefix sir, as in would you be interested in protecting your console sir, / would you like to buy an Xbox Live subscription to go with it sir. Making it absolutely clear that he didn't want to deal with me at all. My husband told him 3 times that I was the one interested in buying the console, and he still kept doing it in a really arrogant way. He either wasn't listening or really didn't give a crap. I was so annoyed at his attitude towards me. There was one of those survey things on the end of the receipt, so I did the survey telling the company about my experience and I never got a response back. A few months later the company was having financial difficulty and they closed down a bunch of shops, with that one being one of the first, because it wasn't profitable, which I'm really not shocked by. So I tried to buy a longboard. It would have been my second expensive one from an actually skating brand, and I have been longboarding for 6 years now and skateboarding since I was 7. Walk into the store with my BF, who has never skated anything in his entire life. Due to works there, he was new, hadn't seen him there before, walks straight up to us and asks him back, quote, "Hello sir, how may I help you?" Which already I'm like. Before BF could say anything I said back, quote, "I'm looking for a longboard." Dude looks me up and down, very obviously, and I'm honestly reazy to walk out the store, but it's the only one that sells longboards in my area, so I stay and follow him to the boards. First thing he says is back, quote, "This is great for women," and he shows me one that's on a rack labeled back, quote, "beginners," and in my head I'm screaming BC, he hasn't even asked me yet what exactly I'm looking for, or how long I've been skating, or what my last board was like, etc. My BF is visibly agitated by now and so am I, but I try to stay calm and say back, quote, "I'm not a beginner, I go on long drives with my friends every weekend. We skated 15 kilometers yesterday and I broke my board," back quote, when this dude interrupts me to say back, quote, "I find that hard to believe, women can't skate that far," and I for real did not believe these words came out of his mouth. We left immediately afterwards. Found out a few days ago that he was fired because he pulled this crap with every woman that came in and even refused to sell a girl a skateboard BC, it wasn't a feminine sport. I lived alone in a home I purchased myself. My husband and I were only just engaged and not yet living together, as he had his own house and we were just doing our own things. I wanted to get new windows. A salesman stopped by, and when he noticed the ring and asked if * I was engaged, everything stopped. He refused to continue the appointment unless my fiance was there to help make the decision. I kindly explained he doesn't own the house I do and that he doesn't even live here. He lived an hour away at the time. The salesman would not do it. He would not sell me any kind of window unless my fiance was there too. Obviously lost my ducking mind over that. Reported his poor behavior to his company and told them all to duck off. I got windows elsewhere. Thank you for watching Reddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more r/AskReddit videos. Share your stories in the comments section below.